We have two gentlemen, as you have seen in our welcoming slide, Marcelo Keke and Bongo Adi, both of them economists. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me begin with you, Mr. Adi. So you've heard the president, and of course you saw the position of the Economic Advisory Council. But the president began there, well, among other things that he said, that the economy is the most delicate and sensitive of all aspects of national life. Do you agree?
Of course. Of course. Is the economy stupid? That's what they say in the United States. I think that phrase is attributed to the former president of the United States, Clinton. So the economy is where we draw our living from.
Okay, so
it's the basis for survival.
But then the concerns that the Economic Advisory Council raised, does it look like we have given it that level of delicate attention?
Well, the economic management, is not a precision science. It's not like, say, physics, or chemistry, you bring in some chemical elements and then they give you a certain outcome, and all the time that's what you get. So you may do everything, conduct all manner of policies that you think may work, but then it doesn't work for some reasons that you may not understand. But has the economic managers, have the managers given the economy the attention that it rightly deserves? Well, I think they've done their best over the past few years, but the reality is that we're still having very sluggish growth. And because of the sluggishness in the growth pattern that we've recorded over the past few years, unemployment has been on the increase, the misery index has been increasing, and I don't think that many Nigerians are happy with the outcome.
Okay. Mr. Okeke, how do you hope?
What do you say?
Yeah.
I agree with him in total. I also want to add that having the Economic Advisory Council in place, that arrangement might not be ideal in terms of, pulling the economy substantially or significantly out of the wood. Because as an advisory body, when they advise, what next? Who are you advising? They don't function in any executive capacity.
But the president said he would take everything they say and he will execute.
Yeah, he takes them to the various ministers and heads of, ministry, department, and agencies. Human beings. When you take these recommendations, they turn out to be to these persons. Are they really the things those people want to do? And in fact, the advisors who are not in executive position, are you telling me their position allows them to see clearly?
Are you suggesting, Mr. Okeke, that the different ministries, departments, and agencies are working at cross purposes? They are not working towards one goal?
I can't put it that way. We realize that this committee, the Economic Advisory Committee, is a new body, meaning that the MDAs have been in place and doing their own things in their own ways. Do you understand? So, and these people are outsiders. I mean, the advisors. So when the pieces of advice are brought to the attention of these people who are in executive capacities, I'm saying perhaps you could have, a problem harmonizing what these people right on the seat are doing or would want to do, and the advice, that is coming to them at this point in time. That's exactly what I'm saying. There could be that kind of situation.
It's interesting that you put it as an assumption, because, you expect that the Advisory Council will give the advice to the president, and the president will, eventually pass it down to the MDAs. And,
Sure.
The president actually said right after that particular session on the issue of coordination, which you actually touched on,
Exactly.
that, synergy or lack of synergy between MDAs will no longer be tolerated. And I think that's one of the things that the Advisory Council touched on.
Okay, which means that kind of synergy The prophet has not been in existence. That's what is pointed out, that going forward. Do you understand? And that's exactly what I'm saying.
Which makes me ask that question again. Do you think they were all working across purposes and not working in one direction?
No, I am saying that the advisory council is a new body. That these ones have been in place. And you know what it is when you are bringing something new from outsiders. Do you understand? So there could be, that's what I'm saying, there could be
Resistance from the MDAs?
It wouldn't be resistance, but the issue of trying to harmonize what they have been doing and what they are doing. Do you understand? Their own agenda, you know, as you know, side by side with what is now coming new to them.
Okay.
That's the point I'm making.
Mr. Adi.
Yes.
Yes.
How do you react to that? The MDAs, is it likely that the MDAs will not welcome the advice of the Advisory Council coming as a directive from the President?
Okay, let's start from the beginning. When the President constituted or inaugurated the Advisory Council, the chairman happens to be my senior colleague at the Lagos Business School, doing Salami. You know, he gave them some no-go areas. So they were not supposed to touch the exchange rate, you know. So, and I know that doing Bismarck, these are people who I know that are very pro-liberal economists. So they are always in favor of deregulation of the foreign exchange market. Let the exchange rate finds its true value in the market, remove the rigidity, and no longer fix the market. So let the market finds let Naira finds its true value. So, but now the president said, you don't touch this. So what else are they talking about? Now, the incentive, you can see clearly.
Sorry, do you want him to be touched?
Of course. No, do I want the exchange
Those
rate
areas to be touched?
Those areas. Now, the truth of the matter is that the exchange rate is very delicate. Now, yes, the government, the monetary system managers may try as much as they can to, you know, dictate the exchange rate, but it is actually the market condition, for instance, your current account. Once the current account begins to get in the negative, the central bank the central bank, you know, gets jittery. Now they begin to impose all manner of limits in the system to limit demand for foreign exchange, because they know what the implication of that. Okay, so meaning that there is a limit to what they can even do. Now, this year alone, we know that when the economy was cash-strapped during the recession, you know, and afterwards, how the CBN managed was to start to call for non-deliverable forwards, which they, you know, took a lot. And we know that a lot of that is coming due sometime this year to the tune of about a lot of trillions of dollars. Okay, and we know that the non-deliverable forwards were fixed at about 394 Naira to the dollar. So, but today we have an exchange rate of 361. So with the exchange rate find its true value eventually. Now, the CBN governor has also said that if the foreign reserve falls below 30 billion, then they will reconsider devaluation. So really, it's not of their own making when it comes to that. And right now, oil production, because we have to look at our revenue. Now, oil production is at about 1.5 million barrels per day against the budget target of about 2.2, right? So we are significantly below that. Even last year, we didn't meet it. Now, the oil benchmark for the budget was $57, okay? It's $57, but today, oil price is about 54. So we're already falling short in both price and volume.
So do you think we're nearing that point where we might be considering devaluing the economy?
Let's look at what happened between July and December last year. The central bank pumped in almost $5 billion of the reserve, significant part of reserve, to defend the Naira. So supposing that we continue to endure such shortfall this year, what do you think will be their reaction? They will again begin, the reserve will come under attack. Mm-hmm. So supposing that we hit 30 billion, and then supposing that they would have to find money for the non-deliverable forwards coming due this year. That might happen. But so it's a matter of, it's a question of when.
Right. So here's, as you said earlier, that this is not precision science. I mean, sometimes you make decisions and it doesn't swing the way you want it to. So the case of Nigeria, especially when you hear the Advisory Council saying that our economy is not growing as fast as our population. So is it that we're putting a lot of effort and we're getting little in return, or even the effort we're putting in is sort of not right? Which is our case here?
Thank you very much for the question. A lot of things are involved. We should be looking at the entire system, meaning the entire environment. Okay, for example, if you consider what is talking about oil, you find out that the decision about oil is not, completely under the control of Nigeria in terms of what we even put in the market. Do you understand? And in terms of the price, which he has said, we were looking at $57 per barrel, and we're already getting less than that. Okay? So what happens at the end of the day is beyond our control. But let me also come back to the environment I'm talking about. So that when you are doing all you are doing, believing that the economy will grow faster, you'll find out that you have not done much. Let us talk about foreign direct investment. You understand? The world is a global village, and investment goes to, places that the investors consider ideal, for them to operate. But you find out that here, because of the situation of security or insecurity, the FDI might not flow in. And the portfolio investment, foreign portfolio investment, that comes, more significantly than FDI, is hot money. And so once our environment, heats up somehow, these people will just withdraw and take away their money. And that's what causes some of the problem in the foreign exchange market we are talking about. Because when they want to pull out, the pressure comes to the market.
Well,
they want to.
It was one of the things that the Dr. Salami mentioned, at that meeting with the president as well, and that's granted. But speak to the two growths that the gentlemen of the Advisory Council juxtaposed: population growth versus economic growth. Okay,
thank you. Talking about economic growth, and that's what I'm telling you, the things that drive growth.
Yeah, but the two of them, they juxtapose. It's not from the council of these gentlemen.
Okay.
It's not that the economy is not growing.
Okay.
But it is not growing commensurately with the population.
Yes.
And that is the concern.
Okay, and I'm trying to explain that situation to you, why it is like that. The population is growing for a number of reasons. One is that, we are used to uncontrolled, what do I call it now? People bearing children, there's no, and so on and so on. But you now have this situation where we're even talking about, our borders are so porous, people pour in from various countries and all that. And we are now also having the policy of visa on arrival, which will make more people troop in. So when you look at all this, they are all beefing up the population. Do you understand? But when you come to the economy growing, there are so many constraints.
Is it because the economy, beg your pardon, sorry, Mr. Okeke, is it because the economy hasn't factored in the population growth that we're having these challenges, or the government doesn't have policies that can predict or preempt this population growth? What exactly is the issue?
That's the situation.
Okay.
We don't have population control policies in place. And if there are such policies, they are being breached all the way.
So that's one hand.
Yes.
But the fact that if we can't control population, can we control economic growth?
Definitely, we can do very well in terms of instigating growth. Now, I'm not coming here to talk about population control measures. I don't think we're too many in Nigeria, because what is the population of India? What is the population of China? And then we've seen that China in the past 2 or 3 decades have grown, annualized rates of almost more than double digits. And then what happens to an economy if it grows at that rate. Okay, so just the rate of growth, 70 over X. So meaning that if China is growing at 10%, in 7 years, the per capita income will double. So it's not a problem of population. What we have a problem is growth and revenue in our country. So that's our problem is not population, if you ask me. So it's not about controlling the population, but it's about engendering growth. What have we done to engender growth? Now, the economy has grown at a very sluggish pace. I started off with that. Now, why has that happened? That's this 2016 recession, I keep saying, wasn't the first recession that we've had in Nigeria. We've had several, about 4 in the past. And each time the economy bounced out of recession, it recorded very high growth. 4% was the minimum. So, but this time, we've actually been hovering around 2%. Why hasn't that happened? So, the central bank, to deal with this, has embarked on unconventional monetary policies that we've seen all over this period. Now, a lot of economists, including myself, have criticized the central bank for embarking on such policies, using monetary policy to target every aspect of the economy, including trade. So, but then when you look at it, it's not new, and Nigeria, the Central Bank of Nigeria, is not the only central bank that is embarking on that. China does a lot of that. The United States does a lot of that. In fact, in the United States, they call it what they call the modern monetary policy, or modern monetary theory, MMT. So, which is about quantitative easing and all of that, the intervention of the CBN. But what I'm saying is that I think the interventions are coming rather late. If they had started earlier, the economy would have started to kick off. What the CBN did towards the end of last year by mandating or compelling the banks to bring down the lending rate. Okay? Remember, credit to the private sector was almost disappeared, almost. At a point, it was negative. So if money was not being, if there was no access to funds by SMEs, which is the bulk of the production engine of Nigeria, if they are not getting access to finance, so how do you expect the economy to grow?
So what do we do now?
Now, the CBN came last year compelling the banks to start lending using several policies. These are unconventional things, but would they work? Yes, because lending rates overnight has crashed to 15% and less. And then if you look at it also, why? Because again, there are double, mixed signals. If you're from the outside looking into the country, so you'll be looking at the monetary policy system, you'll be looking at those disarticulations, and you will say that we're heading nowhere. But if you're in the inside, and then you're watching how the dynamics in key sectors of the economy, in the real sector. Now, there is an indicator, which I think I always talk about that, which is the Purchasing Managers Index. It has done well over the past 2 years. It's hovered about, at a point it got to 60. Now, if it's above 50, it means optimism. So manufacturers expect that the economy will grow. So right now, it's about 56 or 57, which is significantly above 50. So since it has gone that way over we don't expect it to drop. Now, another thing is that the real sector, real estate, for instance, it is the first to go into recession and the last to come out of recession. So the real sector came out of recession, I think, in sometime, second quarter of last year, or 2018. So as soon as it came out, it meant that we now had very strong signals to growth. Okay. Now, with the incentive that the CBN has further added, I think going into 2020, right, the economy will continue to bounce back. Okay. Now, the disparity between the population growth rate and the economic growth rate will match. Yes, our economy is growing at less than the population growth rate right now, but with the policies we have seen come on stream, we expect that by the end of this year, there will be that gap will be met.
Right. I think another thing which I noticed, which is quite commendable, is the fact that I think the CBN publishes the interest rates for all banks on dailies on a regular basis now. So this helps people to actually know which bank to go to. But let's talk about this issue of population, because you find out that because of the population growth, there's also the issue of unemployment.
Yes.
Because the population keeps growing, unemployment kind of keeps rising, because on one hand, they say jobs are not being created as fast as people are getting into the labor market. So we can't exactly talk about population growth, economic growth, without touching unemployment, or unemployment as the case may be. And something quite interesting the Advisory Council actually mentioned is the fact that we need to strengthen national statistics agencies. And I believe that touches on the MBS and others. So it kind of begs the question, when we do some of this planning, how firm do we have data, appropriate data? For example, the number of SMEs, how many of them need loans? How are we doing when it comes to data in this country? Economic data, that is.
Thank you very much. I want to start by making this statement that it's always easy when you talk about population and economy to compare Nigeria with China and India like my colleague has done. But the truth is that we are different from those people. The reality on ground here are different from those people. You understand?
In what way?
And that's what I want to tell you. When you talk, of course you have to juxtapose, like he said, the economy, the economic growth rate, and then the population growth rate. And how, when you want to talk about the economic growth, which will sustain the population, or the development tile, you now have to come back to the entire environment, where you have to embark on productive economic activity that will sustain the population. You now find out that our environment is bad. That's where you come to infrastructure. Do you compare us with India? Do you compare Nigeria with China? That is where you now come to work ethics, productivity and all that, where our own is down and their own is up. That is where you now come to even the border. We are talking about how do you protect your border? That is why last year we had to go to the conventional approach of closing our land borders. Do you understand? It's part of trying to control the population. That is implied. You understand? So, but these other climes we are comparing with, they are, over the years, they have developed their economy and things are working, better there. But because of the state, the state of development, over the years, we have not developed the economy to the extent to say, okay, the economy will be growing, in such a pace and dimension to take care of, population growth. Now, back to the data he's talking about, because you mentioned data. Over the years, the Nigerian Statistical Bureau of Statistics, is a government agency. And because it's a government agency, all those pitfalls, all those challenges you have with the normal government agencies, whatever challenges, also affects the Bureau of Statistics. Their staff, the government pays their salaries, the government determines their promotion and promotability, the government appoints who is the head and who rises and who doesn't rise in the system. So all those things go to affect how they function.
Okay, Mr.
Even money for them to work with.
We need to begin to wrap up now. But what do you think we should do now, especially with these concerns that the Economic Advisory Council of the President has raised? What must we do now to jumpstart growth in the economy?
Well, my colleague has mentioned it, but it's a question of now sustainability. The central bank has done something by compelling, I don't know whether I'll use the banks to start lending, to the real sector of the economy. They have, meaning that if you put in 100 naira deposit in a bank, 65% of that, meaning 65 naira, is expected to be given out as loan, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so if that is sustained, and of course, the challenge we have here, infrastructure challenge. Because for you to now go into production, even if you have the money, you have to contend with security. You have to contend with power. You have to contend with, you understand? So, but we believe that the government, they have embarked on railway construction, they have embarked on, road construction. So when these things work together, we believe it will be sustained. You understand? And more so since they keep borrowing from China and other places, and they are project-tied loans.
Okay.
So all these things will work together. And we believe that 2020 and this decade we have just entered, things will keep looking up.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Bongoadi, in your final comments, please speak to the MSMEs and what we need to do to help them grow.
Exactly. So the first thing, access to finance, that has improved. The next, like he said, is the capital expenditure. The ramping up of our infrastructure assets in the key sectors, transportation, power. These are the key enablers to productivity. Now, about population, sorry, I have to go back there again. So it's not about controlling the population. We've got population, that is a plus.
But you compared us to China earlier.
Yeah, I did compare
which
us to
actually
China.
they control their population, remember?
Well, yeah, China did that, and now they've actually, removed all those hindrances, so people are having as many kids as they want in China. But what about India? But that's not what I'm talking about. You see, what we need to do is to equip our people, the right skills, build infrastructure, both physical and social infrastructure.
Okay. Well, it's an unending conversation, and it's something that really gets anyone who is interested in gets their blood boiling. Marcelo Keke and Bongo Adi, both economists, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you for having us.